Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Anita and I like to do videos about career, lifestyle, living in Washington DC, budgeting, just really anything and everything. Today I'm going to be doing a video on ADHD and my experience with it as I get ready for the day. So just a bit of background, I'm 26 right now. I have a history of depression, anxiety, and substance use disorder. And these things have been ongoing for a long time, and I now have also, and PTSD, and now I've been diagnosed with ADHD. So I was diagnosed with ADHD about a month ago, and it has been a wild ride. So I will tell you just my history, basically the symptoms I faced that have to do with ADHD, and how I got to the point of diagnosis. Okay, so yeah, I'm just getting ready for a video I'm gonna record that's called like how I budget my 80K salary and how you can budget your salary. Basically, since I was a child, I have dealt with depression, anxiety, and a lot of that manifested in certain ways. Like I had a lot of trouble making friends, I had a lot of trouble talking to people. People viewed me as odd. I was very compassionate, but also angry that people didn't understand me. I did okay in school. I did well enough that like nobody was really worried about it, and also my dad helped me do well. I had tutors, and so I did decently in school. I wasn't hyperactive, I would say. I had attention issues since I was a child. I couldn't pay attention to things. I really struggled remembering things. I remember being foggy, brain fog, things like that. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize anything was wrong until I was about, 14, when I felt severely depressed. And I saw that coming for a few years due to some circumstances in my life. I somehow made it through high school. I made it through high school with decent grades. I was able to get into a university, a good university, and my depression and anxiety got a lot worse. I was having thoughts of self-harm and things like that. But I was also like starting to figure out how I can survive. When I got to college, I was again still struggling with paying attention in class, still struggling with my memory, just things. I just thought something was wrong, and I thought like I felt like I had 80% of my brain working, and I knew that I wasn't working to my full capacity. I knew that, and I didn't know how to fix it. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, my depression got really bad, and I decided to seek treatment for that. So I went to my doctor and I told them all my symptoms, which included, obviously the depression ones, like severe depression, thoughts of self-harm, things like that. But I also told them of other symptoms such as inability to focus, inability to finish tasks, inability to remember things. Like I always was losing things. I was never finishing things that I was supposed to be finishing. And so he said, okay, you have depression, let's try medication. So we tried medication, and it took a while for me to, and CBT. So it took a while for me to adjust to those. They kind of made things better, but kind of not. I made it through school again with a decent grades. A lot of that was kind of just figuring out the system, figuring out ways to survive, which included figuring out which teachers most easily give out the good grades. I figured out the way I needed to study, which is to type things over and over and over and over again until it made it into my brain for long enough for the test. But by the time the test was over, I couldn't remember a thing that I hadn't memorized. Yeah, so again, in college, I did a decent job of getting good grades, and at the time my social life was okay. Well, actually it was quite good. I think people thought I was extremely social. I had figured out a way to get people to think that I was cool and friendly and whatever, and I had a group of friends. I would say that they were all similar to me in a way, but I always felt different. I always felt like something was wrong with me, or I knew something that other people didn't, or they knew something that I didn't know. And again, I always felt like my brain was performing at 70%. I lived with perpetual brain fog, basically. I felt like there was like a film over everything that was like frosted glass or something, and I just couldn't quite see what was actually there. Okay, and yeah, so that's kind of what the brain fog was like, and it was just always there. It never went away, and it was just something that I lived with, just feeling like I wasn't present. So I got treatment for depression and anxiety, and around my junior year, I started developing severe alcoholism, and that got a lot worse as time went on. It made me feel like I was like other people, that people thought I was like normal and cool and whatever, and they didn't, like, I felt like everyone else finally. So the alcohol allowed me to feel like everyone else while also numbing some of the symptoms I had, or allowed me to not pay attention to the fact that I couldn't pay attention or whatever, you know? So that helped me to cope in a way at the time. And so I developed a severe alcohol addiction. Once I graduated college, I moved state to go and pursue a future elsewhere. My alcoholism very quickly got worse as I was away from family and friends, and I was kind of left to my own devices, and I could do what I wanted to do without being judged, which was drink. And this is all important to my diagnosis. I just want to share why, you know, make sure you all know that I'm not just like sharing this randomly, but this is all very important to my diagnosis and ADHD in general. So yeah, I had a lot of those issues. I was still having severe inattention, severe memory issues, severe focus issues, things that people said to me went in one ear and out the other. I couldn't look people in the eye. I was constantly thinking about something else. My brain was just going way too fast, and I couldn't focus on like one thing that I was thinking about. I was always thinking about 15 different things. I couldn't finish tasks, and I was kind of still finding ways to survive. I used manipulation tactics to kind of make sure people thought I was normal. I wanted people to not think I was an alcoholic. I wanted people to think I was paying attention to them. So I got really good at staring at people's eyes as I was not paying attention to them, basically. And so I got good at doing things like that in order to survive. But yeah, so then I was able to get my alcoholism under control. I've now been sober for 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years. And over those past 2 years, I was able to get my depression and anxiety under control through CBT with my therapist, and also with medication through my psychiatrist. During this time, I was also diagnosed with PTSD and worked on resolving that with my therapist. And at this time, I'm currently seeing my therapist less and don't have depression anymore. I have mild anxiety, but it's nothing I can't handle without my CBT techniques. And so I'm doing quite good at this point. I got a new job. I'm doing very well in my job. I bought a house. I'm in a successful relationship, but I still do not know what the hell is going on. I, again, still cannot pay attention. I can't remember things. I lose things all the time. I don't finish tasks. I'm lazy. I can't get up and do things that my husband wants me to do. My capacity for social interaction is very low. I need to go rest after I interact with people. If I go on a weekend trip, I am knackered for days after. And this was just something that was really difficult for me. I was told that these were all symptoms of depression and anxiety. And I was told by everyone that once my depression and anxiety, like my psychiatrist and therapist and stuff, once my depression and anxiety got better, I would no longer have these issues. Now, it was about a month ago that I kind of, oh, and then, okay, so then last year, I started getting really fed up with my exhaustion and my inability to pay attention and focus. I was doing well at work, but only, again, by like manipulating situations and really just figuring out ways to survive, which was, again, just coming up with tactics. I was flying off the seat of my pants. I was doing everything, but just barely, and I wasn't doing more than like, I wasn't like advancing. I wasn't doing things that would help me. I only had the capacity to do my job, and that's it. And even then, I wasn't able to like stay up during the workday. I had to take naps, and it was just hard. And I was getting more and more fed up with it. My husband was getting really fed up with me just sleeping in and me being lazy and, you know, not putting as much of an effort into things as he was and all this stuff, right? And so that was really hard for me because you know, it affected our relationship, and it made me upset that I wasn't enough, and I was lazy, I guess, and I couldn't get up no matter how hard I tried. Right, so I started deciding that I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I was looking into things. I thought I had, you know, narcolepsy, chronic fatigue, things like that. And so I went to sleep studies. I got sleep study done. The sleep study came back normal, which was incredibly frustrating. And I was kind of just left to my own devices again. And yeah, again, I was just barely hanging on. And it was around the summertime that this summer I kind of discovered the possibility of me having ADHD. I don't know how I came upon it. I think I was probably like watching a YouTube video or on Reddit or something, and I probably saw something that said something like ADHD is missed in women and girls or something, and I was like, I have attention issues. I don't have hyperactivity, but I have an attention deficit. And so I looked it up, and when I read like the criteria, and I was like, oh my God, this is me. And I got a little excited, and but I also knew about my substance use history, so I was hesitant to talk to my psychiatrist about it, with fear that they would think I was just trying to like get my grubby little hands on some drugs, you know, which fair, okay. I am an addict, but I decided that I had to try because the criteria again really showed me, really like showed what I was going through. And this wasn't just the regular criteria, this was criteria especially in women. And so for women, ADHD is a lot more, has to do with inattention, I guess. Inattention, inability to focus, inability to remember, being considered lazy. You know, you might still have done well in school. You might still be really intelligent and compassionate, and like you might have like kind of sailed through everything, but you figured out ways to do that. And that's kind of the case for me. I just figured out ways to succeed, even though I was really struggling the entire time. And so I decided, you know, I was like, hey, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not anxious anymore. I still cannot for the life of me listen to my husband talk to me for longer than 10 seconds. I still forget everything he tells me. I still leave the laundry overnight because I can't be asked to go get it, even though I know it's wet. I have bursts of energy and I can get things done when I want to get them done, but I can't get them done if someone asks me to and I'm not in the mood. I'm very impulsive at times. Like I'll be chilling 1 second and get the idea that I want to go to Miami, and then suddenly I've booked a huge trip to Miami, you know, whatever. Like I was impulsive, I was low energy, I just basically had all the symptoms, and I was no longer depressed or anxious. Yeah, so I was no longer depressed or anxious, but I was still having these severe cognitive issues. And so I went to my psychiatrist and I basically said, hey dude, So I no longer, thanks to you and my therapist, I no longer have depression or anxiety. I've managed them, but I still cannot remember where I left my keys for shit. I also don't know what the hell they're talking about in meetings because I cannot pay attention. My husband still talks to me. I look him in the eye, but I don't know what he's saying to me. My memory's shit. I almost forgot this meeting, in fact. And he was kind of like, okay, well, you know, let's test you for, let's see what's up with the attention thing. And so then he looked at my intake document and like that I had submitted a year ago, and he noted that a lot of the answers I had given reflected what I was saying. You know, it wasn't just something new that I had come up with. And he also noted, he also asked me some more questions, which I answered, you know, honestly and all of that. It was also, so he kind of like was like, hey, it kind of sounds like you have an attention disorder, but I want to talk to your husband about it. I want to talk to someone who knew you, who's known you for a while. Usually they'll talk to someone who you've known you as a child, but there's no one around me like that because I live only with my husband. And so he agreed to meet my husband, and my husband basically corroborated everything I said. I thought it was just because I'm an addict and he was trying to figure out if I was just trying to get medication from him or not, but apparently this happens to other people too. So we did that, and then he confirmed that I have ADHD. It was incredible relief to receive my diagnosis. It finally validated everything I'd been feeling. You know, I was able to acknowledge that I wasn't lazy, I was just sick, and that, you know, it wasn't all in my head. And I also got angry. I got angry because I had been struggling for so long and suffering for so long, and I was only getting a diagnosis at 26 when I could have gotten it earlier. And so that was hard, but it's okay. Anyway, so then I was prescribed Ritalin, which I started taking a few days later when I was able to get the prescription filled. And it was life-changing. It was completely different. It just altered my life within one day, honestly. I took it on when I was working in the morning, and I finished projects that I've been thinking about for a year. Like projects that I'd come up with in my head but just did not have the capacity to complete. I completed them that day, and I was able to do stuff, and I felt like my brain was still not 100%, but it was at like 90, 95, and I could use more parts of my brain that I hadn't. That's what it felt like, which again was amazing. And so I'm about 3 weeks into treatment, and I just feel so grateful that I've been able to be diagnosed and that my doctor listened to me, and that I've been able to be put on medication. I have found that when I'm not on my medication, I tend to do the things that I'm supposed to do just because I'm like, I'm supposed to do this, and then I just go do it. So my mind's kind of changing and adapting to the way I operate now on the medication, and it's all good. My husband is amazed. I'm amazed, and yeah. So now I just want to give a few bits of other information, like why I shared all that substance use things. So apparently ADHD and substance use and depression and anxiety have a lot, can be comorbidities for a lot of people. So there's a lot of studies that show this. So for example, in a study of young adults, approximately 44% of the participants with ADHD met the criteria for alcohol abuse or dependence, compared with 27% of the control participants. So this means that people with ADHD are more likely to abuse alcohol or have a dependence. And I would say that's probably because we self-medicate, just the way I did, to deal with the issues that we're having, the difficulties that we're having. It is also said that the transition from alcohol use to abuse is more rapid for people with ADHD than for people without it. It's also shown that kids with ADHD are more likely to start drinking and abusing alcohol or other drugs earlier as well. I think they start drinking alcohol at an earlier age by like quite a large percentage. So this isn't just alcohol, it's other drugs as well. Something about this that I'm seeing a lot is that substance abuse should be treated before the ADHD is treated. It should be a combination of addiction treatment, psychotherapy, and pharmacotherapy. And of course, careful monitoring of patients, especially if they have an addiction issue like I do. And this makes sense to me because if I hadn't resolved my substance abuse disorder, I wouldn't have the mental capacity to deal with my ADHD and ADHD diagnosis, and my mind wouldn't be clear enough to acknowledge that I still have these issues despite having cleared my other issues. Anyway, so I just wanted to share my story on ADHD. If you are worried that you might have ADHD or you're facing a lot of issues that like seem unexplained or are going unexplained by doctors and they sound similar to mine, and you're a woman or someone who identifies as a woman and you're also struggling in this way, I would advise you to talk to your doctor. I do know that a lot of doctors are hesitant to diagnose folks with ADHD, but I would really just try. I would say that my approach worked quite well. We've resolved my depression, we've resolved my anxiety, and I still have these issues that seem to work quite well. But I also had a history with my psychiatrist of about a year, so he knew who I was. He knew I was forthcoming. He knew where I was in my sobriety and all that stuff. But yeah, if you think you have ADHD, I would highly recommend going to your doctor and, you know, asking for a test. Just straight up being like, hey, I need you to test me. And coming prepared to fight for that diagnosis, because I know a lot of women struggle in getting diagnoses because people tend to think that ADHD only happens in young boys who are hyperactive, that you have to do bad in school in order to have ADHD, and that's really not the case. A lot of us, a lot of women especially, we have managed to do well in school by figuring out ways to do that, and we are still struggling out here and nobody is paying attention. So yeah, I really highly recommend, you know, trying to get your diagnosis if you fear you may have this. It has been liberating getting my diagnosis and starting treatment. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or comment down below. I'd love to hear your story on how you got diagnosed, or if you related to anything on this video, because yeah, I just wanted to share this story because getting treatment and my diagnosis has been life-changing. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you will like, comment, and subscribe. I will probably be talking a lot more about ADHD on my channel as I talk a lot about work, and the ADHD affects my work greatly. So I have a lot of vlogs about me working, and I've been talking about ADHD a lot in it. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye.